Chosen one, your sensitivity is not a flaw, it is a capacity. But awareness without boundaries is just exhaustion. God is teaching you to regulate what you carry so your sensitivity can mature into discernment. You were not designed to live in constant hypervigilance, but to live anchored. Protect your peace. It is the very filter you need to hear clearly. Because right now, if you're honest, it doesn't always feel like a gift. It feels heavy. You walk into a room and pick up on everything: the tension, the energy, the unspoken emotions. You notice shifts in tone, small changes in behavior, things most people overlook. And at first, you thought this awareness would help you navigate life better. But instead, it started draining you. You don't just observe things, you absorb them. And that's where the confusion begins. Because what feels like discernment sometimes leaves you anxious, overthinking, questioning everything, wondering if what you're sensing is real, or if it's just your mind trying to protect you. And without clear boundaries, those two start to blur. So the question isn't whether you're sensitive. The question is, what are you doing with that sensitivity? There's a point where awareness stops feeling like clarity and starts feeling like weight. And if you've been in this space, you recognize it immediately. Your mind rarely slows down. You're constantly observing, reading between lines, noticing subtle shifts in people that others don't seem to catch. A slight change in tone, a pause that feels longer than usual, a message that feels different, even if the words are the same. And instead of simply noticing, you internalize it. You begin to analyze. You replay interactions, trying to understand what changed, what it means, what might happen next. You look for patterns, for signals, for anything that gives you a sense of certainty. But instead of clarity, what builds is tension. Because the more you analyze, the more possibilities your mind creates. And most of those possibilities are not grounded in truth. They're shaped by fear, by past experiences, by a need to stay prepared for something going wrong. This is where things start to blur. Because on the surface, this level of awareness feels like discernment. It feels like you're tuned in, like you're picking up on deeper layers of reality, like you're seeing what others miss. But internally, it doesn't feel steady. It feels urgent. It feels like you need to figure things out immediately. Like if you don't understand what you're sensing right now, you'll lose control of the situation. So you keep thinking, you keep analyzing, you keep trying to resolve something that isn't even clear yet. That's not discernment. That's anxiety wearing the mask of awareness. Because true discernment does not rush you. It doesn't flood your mind with endless questions. It doesn't demand immediate conclusions. It simply notices, and then it waits. There's a calmness to it, even when what you're sensing is important. Anxiety, on the other hand, feels like pressure. It pushes you to assign meaning too quickly. It fills in the gaps with assumptions. It convinces you that every detail matters, that every shift is significant, that every feeling must be interpreted right now. And the longer you stay in that state, the more exhausting it becomes. Because you're not just aware of your own emotions, you're absorbing the atmosphere around you. You pick up on other people's stress, their tension, their unspoken thoughts. And without realizing it, you start processing those emotions as if they belong to you. That's why you feel drained. Not because your sensitivity is wrong, but because there are no boundaries around it. You haven't been taught how to filter what you sense. So everything gets in. Every signal, every shift, every emotional undercurrent. And your system tries to make sense of all of it at once. That's not sustainable. And deep down, you already know the difference. Because discernment leaves you grounded, even when it reveals something uncomfortable. But anxiety leaves you scattered, even when nothing is actually wrong. One creates clarity, the other creates noise. And until you learn to separate what you notice from what you carry, your awareness will continue to feel overwhelming instead of empowering. The most important distinction you need to understand is this. Discernment and anxiety may look similar on the surface, but they feel completely different within you. If you don't learn to recognize that internal difference, you will keep misinterpreting your own sensitivity. Because both can make you feel like you're picking up on something. Both can bring awareness. Both can make you pause. But what happens next? That's where the truth reveals itself. Discernment is quiet, not silent but steady. It doesn't rush you into conclusions or overwhelm your thoughts. It doesn't demand that you figure everything out immediately. Instead, it presents something to your awareness and allows you to sit with it. There is space between what you sense and how you respond. You can breathe. You can observe. You can wait. Even if something feels important, there is no panic attached to it. There is no pressure forcing you to act right away. You feel grounded enough to hold the information without being controlled by it. That's what makes it reliable, because truth does not need urgency to prove itself. Anxiety, on the other hand, feels very different. It is not quiet, it is persistent. It pulls your attention in a way that feels urgent, almost demanding. It tells you something is wrong, something is shifting, something needs to be figured out immediately. And it doesn't stop at one thought. It multiplies. One thought turns into 5, 5 into 10, and suddenly you're no longer observing. You're trying to predict, control, and resolve something that hasn't even clearly happened. You're no longer present. You're projecting. And that projection feels real because your body is already reacting. This is another key difference that many people miss. Discernment is felt in a regulated body. Your breathing stays steady, your chest remains open, and even if you feel alert, you don't feel threatened. There is a sense of presence, like you are fully here, aware, but not overwhelmed. You can hold what you're sensing without losing yourself in it. Anxiety feels like activation. Your body tightens, your thoughts accelerate, your chest may feel heavy, and there's a subtle pressure pushing you to act, fix, or escape the feeling. It's not just mental, it's physical. And once your body is activated, your mind will try to justify that feeling by creating explanations, attaching meaning to small details, and building narratives that often come from fear rather than truth. That's why anxiety feels so convincing. It doesn't begin as a thought, it begins as a sensation, and then your mind follows. Discernment works differently. It brings awareness without destabilizing you. It gives you insight while keeping your peace intact. Even when what you sense is uncomfortable, it doesn't pull you into chaos. It keeps you anchored. And this is where your relationship with sensitivity has to mature. The issue is not that you feel too much. It's that everything you feel is being treated as equally important. There is no filter, no boundary, no separation between what you notice and what you carry. So your system becomes overloaded. But sensitivity was never meant to function like that. Sensitivity is a tool, discernment is the skill, and boundaries are what make that skill sustainable. Without boundaries, your sensitivity will always turn into overwhelm. But with boundaries, something shifts. You begin to notice without absorbing, sense without spiraling, and understand without overinterpreting. And most importantly, you begin to trust the quieter signal within you. The one that doesn't rush, doesn't drain, and doesn't need to prove itself. That is discernment. At some point, your sensitivity will force you to face a truth that you can no longer ignore. Boundaries are not optional. Without them, your sensitivity will keep working against you instead of for you. What was meant to guide you will begin to drain you. What was meant to bring clarity will start creating confusion. And what was meant to be a strength will slowly feel like something you have to manage just to survive your day. But the problem is not your sensitivity. The problem is the absence of structure around it. Most people misunderstand boundaries because they think boundaries are about distance. They think it means pushing people away, becoming less caring, less available, or emotionally closed off. But that's not what real boundaries are. Boundaries are not about rejection, they are about recognition. Recognition of what belongs to you and what does not. Recognition of what you are responsible for and what you are simply aware of. Right now, if you feel overwhelmed, it's not because you're too sensitive. It's because everything you sense is being treated as something you need to carry. There is no separation between noticing and absorbing. So every emotional signal, every subtle shift, every unspoken tension enters your system and stays there. Your mind then tries to process all of it at once, searching for meaning, trying to resolve things that may not even belong to you. That is where the exhaustion comes from. So the first boundary you need is internal, not external. It's not something you say out loud. It's something you decide within yourself. Just because you feel something does not mean you are responsible for it. Just because you notice something does not mean you need to fix it. That shift alone creates space. Because now, instead of immediately absorbing everything, you pause. You ask yourself a simple question. Is this mine? And if the answer is no, you let it pass without attaching to it. You don't build a story around it. You don't analyze it. You allow it to exist without carrying it. That is where regulation begins. The second boundary is your attention. Your attention is one of the most valuable things you have, but when you are highly sensitive, it often becomes too available. Everything pulls you in. Every small detail feels significant. Every change feels like something you need to understand. But attention is not passive, it directs your energy. Wherever your attention goes, your energy follows. So if your attention is constantly scanning for problems, your energy will remain in a constant state of tension. Boundaries mean you become selective with your attention. Not everything you notice deserves your focus. Not everything you feel deserves your analysis. You begin to choose what you engage with instead of reacting to everything automatically. And at first, this feels uncomfortable because it feels like you might miss something important. But over time, you realize that most of what you were engaging with never needed your involvement in the first place. The third boundary is your response. You don't have to react immediately. You don't have to respond to every message, explain every feeling, or resolve every perceived issue in real time. Anxiety pushes for immediate reaction because it wants relief. Discernment allows space because it trusts clarity. So when you slow down your response, you interrupt the automatic loop of overreaction. You give yourself time to see what is actually real and what is just a temporary activation. And this is where your identity begins to shift. You are no longer someone who absorbs everything around you. You become someone who filters. Someone who can walk into an environment, notice what's happening, and still remain anchored within yourself. Someone who can sense tension without internalizing it. Someone who can recognize emotional shifts without taking responsibility for them. That is a completely different way of living. Because now, your sensitivity is no longer something that overwhelms you. It becomes something that informs you. It becomes precise instead of scattered. It becomes useful instead of exhausting. And most importantly, you begin to feel like yourself again. Not pulled in multiple directions. Not constantly analyzing. Not carrying things that were never yours. Just aware and grounded at the same time. And that is what boundaries were always meant to give you. Not distance from the world, but stability within it. So how do you actually shift from anxiety into discernment? Not just conceptually, but in the way you live and respond every day. Because understanding the difference is one thing. Embodying it is something else entirely. Your sensitivity doesn't automatically become discernment just because you recognize it. It becomes discernment when it is trained, regulated, and guided consistently. Right now, your system may be used to reacting quickly, scanning constantly, and trying to interpret everything at once. That pattern didn't appear randomly, it was learned. And because it was learned, it can also be retrained. This is where the process begins. The first step is pause. When you feel that familiar internal surge, the need to analyze, to interpret, to figure something out immediately, you interrupt it. Not by suppressing it, not by pretending it isn't there, but by choosing not to follow it automatically. You pause just long enough to create a gap between what you feel and what you do. That gap is where discernment starts to form. Without that pause, everything stays reactive. With that pause, you introduce choice. The second step is to name what's actually happening. Not the story your mind is building, not the conclusion you're trying to reach, but the raw experience itself. You might say, I feel activated right now, or I notice tension, or there's uncertainty here. This matters because it separates you from the spiral. You are no longer inside the reaction. You are observing it. And once you can observe something, it loses some of its control over you. The third step is release. Not forcing the feeling to disappear, not trying to resolve everything immediately, but deciding not to carry it forward unnecessarily. You allow the sensation to exist without turning it into a narrative. You don't feed it with more thoughts. You don't try to solve it before it's clear. You let it pass through you instead of building around it. This is how your system begins to change. Because every time you pause instead of react, every time you name instead of assume, every time you release instead of hold, you are creating a new internal pattern. And at first, it may feel unnatural. Your mind may still want to go back to overanalyzing. Your body may still feel the urge to stay alert. That's normal. Change doesn't happen instantly. It happens through repetition. And this is where another important layer comes in: internal safety. Right now, part of your anxiety may come from the belief that you need to stay alert in order to stay safe. That if you relax, you'll miss something. That your constant awareness is what protects you from being caught off guard. But that belief keeps your system in a permanent state of tension. Real safety doesn't come from predicting everything. It comes from trusting that you can handle what happens when it happens. It comes from knowing that you don't need to solve every possibility in advance to be okay. And that trust is built gradually. Each time you choose not to overreact, you reinforce it. Each time you allow uncertainty without rushing to fix it, you strengthen it. Each time you stay grounded instead of spiraling, you confirm it. Over time, your system begins to understand something new. It is safe to be present without being on edge. And when that happens, your sensitivity starts to transform. You begin to notice things without absorbing them. You begin to sense without attaching meaning too quickly. You begin to trust the quieter signals instead of reacting to the louder ones. And that shift changes how everything feels. Because now, your awareness is no longer overwhelming, it's precise. But this only works if you stay consistent. You don't need intensity. You don't need perfection. You don't need to get it right every time. What matters is repetition. Returning to the same process again and again. Pause. Name. Release. Even in small moments. Because discernment is not something you suddenly activate one day. It's something you build, layer by layer, until it becomes your natural way of responding. And when it does, your sensitivity will no longer feel like something you have to control. It will feel like something you can finally trust. There comes a point in this process where you no longer feel confused about what you're experiencing. You don't have to constantly ask yourself, is this anxiety or discernment? Because you can feel the difference. And the signs don't show up as something dramatic. They show up in quiet, consistent shifts within you. The first shift is emotional. You feel calmer. Not because everything in your life is suddenly perfect, not because there are no challenges, but because your internal state is no longer constantly reacting. The same situations that used to trigger overthinking or emotional spirals now feel more manageable. You still notice details, you still pick up on energy, but you don't feel consumed by it. There is a sense of steadiness underneath your awareness, like you can hold what you're sensing without being overwhelmed. The second shift appears in how you behave. You begin to react less and choose more. You no longer feel the same urgency to respond immediately, to fix everything, or to figure out what every small change means. Instead of jumping into action, you pause naturally. You allow things to unfold before deciding what to do. And often, you realize that many things you used to worry about don't actually require your involvement at all. That realization creates space. The third shift happens in your thinking. Your mind becomes quieter. Not empty, but more focused. The constant loops, the replaying of conversations, the analyzing of every detail, the searching for hidden meaning begin to fade. You stop trying to extract answers from everything. And when something truly matters, it becomes clear without force. You don't have to chase clarity anymore. It comes to you. And then there is the deepest shift. Trust. You begin to trust yourself in a way that feels stable, not fragile. You trust that you can sense what is real without needing to overinterpret it. You trust that if something requires your attention, you will recognize it without needing to stay in a constant state of alertness. You trust your ability to respond when necessary, instead of trying to predict everything in advance. And that trust reduces the pressure you used to carry, because you no longer feel responsible for figuring everything out ahead of time. You're able to stay present, you're able to stay grounded, and you're able to move through situations with clarity instead of tension. That's how you know your sensitivity is no longer working against you. It's working with you. At the end of all this, it becomes very clear. Your sensitivity was never the problem. The absence of boundaries was. You were given the ability to notice, to feel, to perceive things beyond the surface. But without structure, that ability turned into overwhelm. What was meant to guide you started draining you, simply because everything was being carried instead of filtered. But now you understand something different. Discernment is not about feeling more. It's about carrying less. It's about allowing your awareness to exist without letting it control you. It's about creating space between what you sense and what you choose to engage with. And most importantly, it's about protecting your peace, not as something fragile, but as something essential. Because your peace is not a luxury. It is your filter. Without it, everything feels urgent. With it, everything becomes clear. So as you move forward, don't focus on trying to control every thought or emotion. Focus on staying anchored. Focus on returning to that internal steadiness, again and again, even when it feels unfamiliar. Pause, notice, release, and trust that what truly matters will remain clear without force. You don't need to carry everything to be aware. You just need to stay grounded enough to discern what is actually yours.